Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Play Front Mission 5, Scars of the War. So I said that I would have an episode out in a week, but I actually thought about it a bit, and I realized that it probably makes sense to do the base section first, and then do all the setup stuff and the simulator. That was a weird way to pronounce that, but yeah, the simulator. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's do the base section. So last night I went through and did all the scouting this out and seeing what the dialogue was again. And so this is a long base section, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. And then after that, I'll do the setup, and then we can do the simulator mission and proceed to the next section of the game. And we are, we're kind of getting towards the end of the game now. Like, it's, there's basically 2 acts left in the game. The next section, I think, has 3 missions to it, and then we're on to the final section of the game. So yeah, let's have a look at what's going on at Fort Monus, now that we are back from South America. So, one thing to mention is that, if you want to get this dialogue, you have to go here first before you go to the gym, I think it is, or the command center, the ops room, because there's a whole plot thing that goes on here that gets triggered when you go to those places. So let's go ahead and talk to Erica Asquith, the overbearing secretary. So, obviously a little bit of a mistranslation, unless you somehow referring to Walter without not looking at Walter. So yeah, we can't listen to this. Or sorry, I mean, what I was trying to get at is that if you go down here and you talk to one of the soldiers, they tell you that Asquith is interested in Norse mythology, so she can tell you something about Grimnir, the terrorist organization that Morgan is running, because, she understands what Grimnir means in the context of Norse mythology. But that's not what she does there, so let's go ahead to the ready room. And we want to talk to Daryl. So this is actually pretty significant dialogue we get here. There is a fair amount of significant dialogue in this section of the game, unlike the previous base section, which was pretty much just frivolous stuff. So yeah, Asquith knows that stuff. Well, let's go try to talk to Asquith again and see if she can tell us something about it. Nope. It's interesting. So, we will just go from section to section then and have a look at what's going on. One thing I did want to do... someone was eating a chocolate bar here. Who could it be? Well, it certainly wasn't Randy, even though he loved his chocolate bars. Yeah, I wanted to take a look at our pilots and see if there was any way we could ditch for an S-type striker, but you know what? We already have an S-type striker, and... because, you can recruit an S-type striker in this section, but... yeah, I don't think we really need it if we're going to continue using Julius. Alright then. So maybe we won't do any recruiting in this mission. You know, the guy that we really want to recruit is Duke Takahashi, and he's not available until the next base section, which I think is maybe like either the second to last or the last base section. I think it's probably the second to last base section. So, yeah, we can't grab him quite yet. We don't have a high enough rank, and he's not around. Alright, sure. Alright. And we can go to the hangar. So we've done the armored section completely. Move on to the troop barracks. This guy here is the S-type striker you can recruit, and there is another S-type pilot. It is a launcher you can grab. There is an S-type launcher. I think it's this character here, Cecily. But you know what? We don't need a launcher, so it's like, I guess we'll recruit them later. Maybe. And, I think in later front mission games, as in the DS game, this was changed to the FIA, Federal Intelligence Agency. But here I'm using the like old school FAI, Federal Agency of Intelligence or something like that. And yeah, it's just like the CIA basically, and they are different from the military intelligence that I mentioned in the plot video, the B-device plot video. So you may remember them from Front Mission 3 because Dennis from that game is a member of the FAI. But yeah, I don't think they show up at all in Front Mission 1. It's only the USN military intelligence that shows up there. And you might see this word, these words "defender of justice" come up a lot in the translation, and it seems kind of weird. But basically, it's this word or term, "seigi no mikata," that you see all the time in anime. It's like, or like if you're thinking about like you know, like Kamen Rider or those kind of shows, like. Definitely the hero characters that show up in there are like Seigi no Mikata. Like basically like the ally of justice or defender of justice. So like ally of justice sounds even weirder than defender of justice, and that's why I use defender of justice there. It's a weird term. basically kind of like a hero, right? Okay, and now we're going to get into the Front Mission 2 stuff. Lots and lots of spoilers here, so if you want to, go ahead and play Front Mission 2 yourself, and you don't want to be spoiled on the whole plot, then just skip the rest of this video. Like, it's not that important. So, if you do want to learn something about the Front Mission 2 plot, then just keep listening. So when they say military-led war, they are talking about the Alardeshi military, which is distinct from the OCU military. So it was a similar situation to the one that we saw in Cambodia, where there was conflict between the OCU and the pro-independence military forces. And yeah, I mean they're pretty much just modeled after many different sort of officers' coups that you see throughout 20th century history, Arab socialism, or many Latin American military regimes, or even the Turkish regime, the post-Ataturk Turkish regime, which are trying to modernize around the military as the pillar of society. So the Alardeshi military coup is totally based on that sort of historical model. So, I mean, yeah, I just keep going on about how good the story is in Front Mission 2, but one thing I really like about the game is okay, they actually did their research about the history of third worldism and the history of military coups in third world countries, and the history of imperialism and all that kind of stuff, and it all shows up in that game. So let's keep listening. Oh, wow. Oh, spoilers. And more spoilers. Something called Fenrir. So Fenrir is if you want to talk about the holy trinity of spooky military tech in Front Mission, you've got your B device, your S device, and Fenrir. Those are kind of the three major devices that show up in the series that plots are built around. And it's an invasion system for controlling unmanned weapons and electronics, it says here. So, basically what it is a control satellite for controlling an army of unmanned Wanzers. And as you might recall from the Wanzer Roundup, we talked about the Shakal. And the Shakal is, of course, the Wanzer that is designed primarily for unmanned combat, and it is manufactured by Intergehen. And Intergehen happens to be the big bad of Front Mission 2. And the kind of front organization that is actually manufacturing Fenrir, and planning to basically create a robot army of doom to go and take down the OCU and other governments after that. And that is the fallout, pun intended, of the final mission of Front Mission 2. Basically, the climax of the game is you racing to launch a nuclear missile, like an ICBM, up into space in order to destroy the Fenrir satellite before it can assume direct control of the Wanzer armies. and basically wipe out the OCU. It's all really dramatic, and the mission is like crazy, crazy huge and intense. Um, that's the big question, right? Is Fenrir still operational? So, we took out the Fenrir satellite at the end of Front Mission 2, but think back to what the agenda of Intergehen was. It was to, basically take out the OCU, and the OCU, the OCU actually funded the development of Fenrir, you find out in the course of Front Mission 2. And this all sounds pretty familiar, right? The OCU is funding some sketchy military research, and it ends up blowing up in their face, right? And actually, when you think about what Intergehen was trying to do, it sounds pretty similar to what Daryl was telling us that Bernard has been trying to do, right? And as a matter of fact, Bernard was behind both the Fenrir development and the S-type development. Now, of course, he was a medical doctor, so he probably did not, do the design and the innovation to the same extent that he did with the S device. But when you think to like the Cambodia missions we did and how there were these dodgy military research facilities going on in that country, and how Morgan showed up to fight us on the Cambodian border, and then how Alardesh is actually in the same region, which, as we'll see in a little bit, was basically like highly exploited by the OCU and raring to go for revolt against them. So it said in a previous dialogue that Morgan started out in Africa, but then moved to Southeast Asia for his operations, and primarily what he was doing there was trying to sow unrest against the OCU in his campaign to take down the super states of the world, so the EC, the USN, and the OCU. He wanted to take them all down, and Fenrir was a part of his plan to do so. So yeah, I mean, this is like, there, I've spoiled the whole game from Mission 2. It's like the military plot that was launched against the OCU was actually backed by Intergehen and therefore backed by Morgan as a part of his general shit disturbing. So a little bit of foreshadowing what might happen later in the game. So I guess that's like a reference to Walter kind of being a spook now. Anyhow, let's carry on here. Head over to the bunks. And this is some really, really stupid dialogue that we are going to see here. It's just dumb. Like, plain dumb. Now, I think what he actually means is Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, I get this. Yeah, it's deflationary era in pilots. So basically, he's saying that the pilot wages are deflating because there's too many pilots around compared to before. So basically, he's worried about losing his job. Um, I kind of want to recruit this guy just for his aviators, even though he's a complete moron. Um, so yeah, like he's worried about losing his job, and he's trying to give like your standard like huckster, like B grade TED Talk circuit, and motivational speech. Like this guy's like TEDx, like Bush League here, trying to talk about whatever kind of inspirational, motivational crap he can think of, to try to pump people up and get them to be excited about synergy and productivity and all this kind of human resources garbage. Sorry, having some controller issues. And yeah, I mean that's really like pretty much what they say in the Japanese. I'm not exaggerating. I thought that was a little bit clever, I guess. Alright, that's enough of that crap. Ah, we gotta go over here and check out the operations room because there's something going on over here. So you'll see there's a major and lieutenant colonel. This guy is new. This is the guy that we've seen around here before, told us to get the hell out at the beginning of the game. Yeah! That's the stuff. Okay. Wonder if they have... So now we're gonna see what else happens to this guy. It's basically, you know, like your typical uh, spoiled brat Poindexter who doesn't belong in the rank he belongs or he is in, and is just like, you know, using his rank to make everyone below him miserable. So they are going to give him a bit of a dressing down. First, let's go to the lounge. And oh wow, look, it's Lynn and Ed. I love how they did this, like, special crappy animation just for Ed. And, yeah, dive, dive, dive. Isn't that, line from Free Space 2? I might have taken it from there. Oh, I forgot to talk to Ed. I'm sorry. Well, he'd just be Eden as usual. So yeah, there's like so many Lynn character beats in that one scene there. Like, you know, first of all, she's wearing the glasses. Second of all, she wants to call you, or call Walter Walter instead of, you know, Fung. And, then he, then after saying that stuff, she comes up and like pretends to adjust your suit, out of like, you know, showing her concern for you because like she's your lover, and but that's actually just a show, and what she's really doing is like whispering to you about what she's been searching about, Bernard, and the fact that the information on him has been deleted from the military databases, mysteriously by someone on the inside. And then, you know, just to make sure that nobody gets any funny ideas that she'd been going soft, she decides to beat the crap out of her old-time friends. And then they run off. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's Lynn. She's... And then there's that whole thing about her using the eclipse to spy on people just for fun because she is kind of a megalomaniac, and she definitely gets off on power and control. So I wonder, you know, what kind of relationship she has with Walter in the bedroom. Maybe it's completely the opposite, you know? Maybe, you know, that's just one side of her personality. She's certainly a multifaceted character. Unlike most of the characters in this game, she's got quite a few different sides to her. So yeah, I mean, it's always kind of fun to see Lynn show up. And, we'll go check out the junior officer's room first. Oh, no, wait. We don't want to talk to them first. We're gonna go talk to the senior officer. We're gonna go talk to Spikeman. So he wants to get with Erica Asquith, who is a little bit confused about where her, where the colonel who she micromanages all the time has gone. Where did he go? Oh, he's down in the junior officer's room with Enos Gagnon. So I think they must be using this kind of French-sounding name to emphasize that he's like born to money and is kind of a snot. Like, you know, a real kind of aristocratic jerk. Because I guess French names have that kind of aristocratic connotation in Japan. So, yeah, so you got Dennis here, and then Roland, the colonel, and then the drill sergeant that you might recall from the scene where Walter is training to get into the Strike Wyverns. Basically, he's a drill sergeant for, well, I mean, he's actually a captain, but for the Marines. You've only got one option. So Walter, he's good at everything, and he's good at dressing down these kind of effete city boys for money and privilege. So it's just about like asserting the chain of command. Like it's that the fantasy about like the real man stepping in and taking control and sorting everything out for you. That's what it's all about in this section here. So, like, they've been going on about this quite a bit throughout the game, that, like, there's this weird conflicting kind of, there's, like, these two interpretations of what the military's all about that are, like, really at odds with each other, that, you see throughout the story in this game. Like, on the one hand, you have the, like, corrupt military, like doing the B device and S device experiments, and like getting people into like kind of frivolous wars for political ends, and so on and so on. And then on the other hand, you have this idea of like this perfect meritocracy where everyone at the top is like really serious, on top of things, a manly man, just like super competent, and so on and so on. So I guess this is really, it's really like kind of common throughout a lot of military fiction. I really think like you could see a parallel to this in like the Sharp series, like Sharp's rifles and so on. If you go and watch that TV series. It's like a number of like short films based on some famous novels, English novels, with Sean Bean as the main character, Sharp, and it's a pretty interesting series. Like, and if you want to like think about sort of like what is the ideology of like what was the ideology of the British Empire and like and Britishness and like British imperialism and so on, because it's really got those two sides to the story, like where basically it's a story about the Napoleonic Wars, and Sharp is like a common soldier who, much like Walter, rises through the ranks on the basis of his competency, but he's constantly butting up against like the nobility, who have bought their offices in the military and are basically just a terrible, like a horrible bunch of shits. Like they're immoral, racist, like classist, incompetent, basically everything you can think of that's terrible, except of course for Wellington, who is, he's on top of things. Like he's a cold bastard, but he knows what he's doing. But like it's really strange in that series where like you really like half the time you almost feel like you should be rooting for the French and not the English, because the French, they actually seem to have a meritocracy over on Napoleon's side, and they seem to, like, the revolution seems to actually mean something when you compare them to the English aristocrats, who are just like the scum of the earth, and it's like it's only like the salt of the earth soldiers, that like the sturdy yeomen that really redeem England as a country, or redeem like the British Crown, right? That like them in alliance with like the competent people at the top, like the exceptional aristocrats who happen to represent the best of their class, and not the majority of aristocrats who are just complete scum. Um, and it's like, yeah, it's like this weird thing where it's like somehow the fact that Sharp is this really competent guy and he submits to the chain of command even though it's extremely corrupt, somehow that makes like England and Britishness greater than if he were to like actually fight against the aristocracy. And yeah, I don't know. It's like I could go on and on about that series. It's so interesting, in terms of like just like national ideology and national identity and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is that like the themes and the kind of the tropes that you see there are really reflected in this section of the game, and which seem to reflect a lot of Tsuchida's ideas about the military, about government, about rank and meritocracy and all that kind of thing, and masculinity and all of those things, and certainly you see them reflected in the Tom Clancy books as well, right? And to a lesser extent, I think you can see them reflected in 24. But you know, like it's kind of like in Clear and Present Danger, in the Tom Clancy book, where you've got like the corrupt guy is on the inside of the U.S. who are doing shady things, and it's up to the true patriots to root them out and purify the body of this state and of the military. So yeah, so that is my little bit about that. But let's carry on with the rest of this base section, which, as I said, you know, is going to be really long. So Walter, he isn't quite buying the whole thing about Bernard blowing himself up. It's like, what's really going on here? There's something fishy. Why would he blow himself up when all the other times that we saw him, he just kind of ran away? So actually, the prototype that that Hector was using as bait was a more developed version of the ASA 9X. And now it's actually going to be used by the USN military in a strange turn of events. And in fact, Lynn is the one running the test runs. So we get a little bit more of a sense of Bernard as a doctor, as an intellectual, and then in the previous dialogue we saw a little bit more of his side as a nationalist and a terrorist.
よってこれら熱量比較と消費電力から地下に何かしらの大規模な施設が存在することは確かだ。概略を説明するぞ。この区画には過去に張り巡らされた地下鉄網が広がっており、ここから物資が搬入されていると思われる。割り出された路線は2つ。1つは地上のスラム区を抜けて地下へ続く物資運搬のインルート。もう一つはその物資がブラックボックスで変貌し、それを運ぶアウトルートだ。作戦の目的は2つ。ブラックボックスの全容解明とそこから運び出される商品の届け先だ。我々はスラム区から貨物車両に乗り込み、ゴミとなって運ばれる。車両は全てコンピュータ制御のため、これに介入して強制停止する。時間内に乗り込め。ブラックボックスの内部は不明だ。基本装備はある程度列車に積み込めるが、支援はない。ブラックボックス解明後、必要ならば再び列車に乗り、搬送先を突き止める。
必要ならば。
この国ではバンツァーを含む大型兵器の所持はもちろん、開発、生産、輸出入、すべて禁止だ。もしこれらの行為が発覚した場合、それらを排除する強制権行使が我々に与えられている。
彼らの代わりに命がけで掃除役をやれと。
そうだ。だが我々にも報酬はある。この国の政府通達でもわかるが、施設はバンツァー工場に間違いないだろう。もちろん非合法にだ。現時点で工場生産までしてバンツァーを必要としている非合法組織はどこだ。そういうことだ。全員準備を始めろ。敵地への侵入だが、政府側の黙秘は取ってある。ありったけを持っていけ。
Right. So there's really just the two things we've kind of been talking about before. There is like on the one hand, there's the whole thing about Alardesh and the situation in Indochina with the OCU and basically how they were oppressing the region. It's kind of like Japan and Australia teaming up to oppress Southeast Asia. For like cheap labor and so on. But you also see in From Mission 2 that there's a huge problem of deindustrialization in Alardesh. Like, a lot of the cities you visit are like former factory towns that have been gutted by deindustrialization. And so it's not just the fact that they are being exploited, it's the fact that they were exploited. Their governments were basically subordinated to the OCU Federation, and then they were no longer exploited, or they were abandoned, right? So they went into this kind of Rust Belt situation, and that's really what incited the desire for independence, which Morgan was able to take advantage of. And so, he's like working the one side with the rebels who are against the OCU, but as we've seen repeatedly throughout the game, Morgan also has been able to make use of the OCU and his connections inside various organizations through bribery and so on, to get his manufacturing done, to get his research done, to get the money he needs, and so on. And in fact, he was actually fighting on the OCU side against us in the border mission, right? So I think I think he's just trying to stir up shit. Like he will fight on the OCU side, like the pro OCU side. He will fight on the anti OCU side. The whole point is to destabilize the OCU by causing as many wars as possible. I guess, his strategy is basically similar to that of Al-Qaeda with regards to the United States. Like, just drag the United States into as many wars as possible, and try to destabilize its hold over the Middle East. So I guess, that's just another way in which this game is a product of its times. And I think, if you compare From Mission 5 to From Mission 2, From Mission 5 definitely feels like much more of a post 9/11 Bush era kind of game. Like it feels like a much more right wing game than Front Mission 2. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. But I'll talk about that a little bit more when we kind of wrap up this series and I give my final impressions about the game. So I guess there's kind of a contradiction between the various sort of worldviews that have developed over the course of the series, and you all kind of see them expressed in Front Mission 5 in various ways. So let's just talk to Hector, and we'll finish this up. And one thing, okay, so I actually did miss some dialogue here, unfortunately, because I went and talked to Hector before I went and talked to the people here. But one thing they do say is that Hector is always, he's often late for meetings, and the one thing they say is if you talk to two different people and ask them about him, they'll give you two different answers about what kind of person he is. And Lynn, saying that he's a shifty guy, watch out. And Walter not exactly buying his explanations of things in the previous mission arc. There's something going on with Hector, and we don't know quite what it is yet. But, we do know that he has some connection to Morgan, because they were talking to each other, and he was actually personally experimented on by Morgan during the Second Huffman conflict. So there are some scars of the war left there, so to speak. So that is all the chatting and the base exploration we're going to do for today. The next thing I will do is go ahead and get the Bonzo setups done, and then we'll go ahead and do that simulator video and proceed with our next set of Cambodia missions. So I hope you enjoyed this rather long base section, coming up on an hour now, and I will see you next time.